and exchange of ideas and thoughts and feelings and questions about a remarkable documentary, The Way of the Warrior, and its premiere in English. My name is Svetlana Yelantieva-Lazarova. I am from Bulgaria, but I've lived in California for 30 years now. And it is my honor to present this documentary created by remarkable philosophers and filmmakers. I would like to introduce the creative team as they are present right now. Georgi, will you take it away? This is Georgi Todorov is one of the producers. He and his wife, Galia, are the producers of this documentary. So please introduce yourself, Georgi.
Well, I'm also the screenplay writer. And I think that my CV is not so very relevant. I just would like to summarize everything. That I'm a Orthodox Christian. I'm a writer on history, on art, on civilization. I've published something like 20 books, mainly in Bulgaria, but also some in the English language. Some were translated into Russian recently. And I have been working with Christo Dimitrov, the director of the production, for more than 30 years. Of course, intermittently, not all the time, but our cooperation in films started back in 1989, just before the great political changes here in Bulgaria, in this part of the world. So our first film actually was shot in the summer of 1989. And we have done another documentary in the 1990s. And now we have made this film, which is 1 hour and 15 minutes long. And let us concentrate really on the filmmaking aspect of our cooperation. Otherwise, we could talk a lot about Bulgaria, about its history, its culture, because the protagonist of our film, Father George from Zheglarci, is deeply embedded in the history of Bulgaria. You need to understand, of course, the psychology of the Bulgarian people. He actually was a kind of almost a refugee from Romania, from that part of ancient Bulgaria, which was, of course, part of Romania in the 20th century. So we need really to know the background of the whole thing. But anyhow, the personality of Father George is so out of the ordinary, so captivating in itself, that even without the background, even without the history of communism, even without the history of Bulgaria, you understand the personality, and this is the main thing. So let's not talk about CVs and backgrounds, but rather concentrate on the film. Of course, we need to work about our director, and I will present him.
All right, go ahead, Georgi.
Yeah. Christo Dimitrov is a professional filmmaker. He's a director of photography. He has studied in Bulgaria, in Poland, and he's the author of maybe 24 films. And he has been director of photography. He has been director of the film. He has been an actor. He has been everything in cinema. Screenplay writer, theoretician of cinema. He has a book on the theory of documentary making. So he's an all-round cinematographic personality. He lives in our hometown of Burgas on the Black Sea coast. And I think that he was the right man at the right time when the personality of Father George erupted into my life. So I decided to do something about it, to record him. And I got in touch with Hindo. He was in Burgas, and we decided to work together on the documentation of this extraordinary figure, not yet making a documentary film, but just recording his table talk, etc. And we didn't know that he was going to die shortly. So we were taken by surprise, and we didn't have time to make the professional recording of his talks. And after he died, we gathered all the material that we had, and we managed to make the film. So I think that Hindo, as his friends call him, Hristo Dimitrov, his full name, Hindo is dedicated to the cinema. He's very honest with his work. He's very professional with his work. But strangely enough, he is, well, that's what he says, atheistic. He's an atheist, declared. So it was very strange that the two of us made, yes, it's a team of kind of dialectic opposites, because he's the professional man of the cinema. I am a theologian and not a man of the cinema, properly speaking. On the other hand, I am the man of the church, and he is the, say, agnostic. So this combination actually worked very well in this particular case, because if he had not been a professional man of the cinema, we would have spoiled the material. It would have been a kind of one-sided track, and we would have missed the, how shall I say, the all-round personality of Father George. And if Georgi, on the other hand, yes,
Georgi, I think that that dichotomy between the two of you as creators brought bigger depth into the film and made it very universal. It made it a documentary that touches not just people of faith, but it touches faith as such, regardless of whether it deals with Christianity, with Buddhism, or with Islam. It is a film of faith and light. It is not a film about one man. Of course, it is a film about one man, but it is bigger than the man, because the faith of this one man is bigger than himself too.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed.
Georgi, would it be all right to invite our guests to introduce themselves? And the way I see them, I will invite people to introduce themselves very briefly, the way I see them on my screen right now. So, Enrique, you are the first to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Enrique Alvarado. I live in Hemet, California, and I'm a Spanish teacher at San Jacinto High School, and I'm delighted to be here.
Right now, the next person is Drew. Go ahead, Drew.
Thank you. So I am I'll say a former Latin scholar in Svetlana's classroom, but more currently work in social media and marketing kind of as a profession, not a 9-to-5, but also make my own videos. They tend to be a little bit more, I think a little more experimental, somewhat more abstract. But I was intrigued very much by the opportunity to join a discussion with creators and fellow filmmakers. So I'm very much excited to hear what you guys all have to say and to be part of this discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Father Ioannis, please introduce yourself.
Good evening from Athens. I think I'm your only neighbor to Bulgaria so far. I'm a priest, an Orthodox priest. serving in Athens. I have studied in the United Kingdom for 4 years, doing my master's degree there and bachelor degree, of course. Married with 3 children, and I'm all in your service.
Thank you very much, Father. Trinidad, you are our next guest to introduce herself. You're muted, Trini. We cannot hear you, Trini. While Trini is taking care of her tech problem, I'm inviting Krasimir Khazerbasanov to introduce himself.
Hi, good evening. I'm a friend of Hindu and a filmmaker living in Bulgaria. Hindu is my teacher in filmmaking. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Krasi. Trini, are you on? Is your sound on?
No.
No, it's that is not happening. I wonder if Trini can log off and return and then as you log back in, you choose allow the platform to use your computer camera and microphone. That works best, at least in our experience with Zoom. Sometimes okay, thank you, Trini. And Zvezdomir, our host, tech host, is going to take care of that. I can say a few words about Trini because she is a colleague and a friend from California. She is also a teacher of Spanish and a woman of faith herself. And I find it amazing how we have gathered here a group of people from very different faith experiences and interactions and involvement with religion. We have Father Ioannis, we have Enrique and Trinidad, who have been raised in the Catholic faith, and we have Drew, who is from the Judaic religion. So it is. I find it fascinating how this gathering of people is going to respond to the movie. A friend has sent his response to the movie. Our friend Adrian Torres responded to the movie with these thoughts. Throughout the film, we see shots of Father George upright, standing, sitting, vertical, and we also see shots of him in bed, laying down, horizontal. The image of the cross comes to mind, the way of the cross, the journey to the cross. The director beautifully told the story of the land, the people, the history of the region. At minute mark 6 minutes 48 seconds, we see the image of Father George in bed, reaching out his hand, speaking, preaching, teaching, praying. Beautiful imagery that gives a sense of him reaching out to God, his followers, us, but also the image of God reaching out a hand to us. There is an innate calling in each of us. We see the calling within Father George. What called the director to tell the story? So, interestingly, we start the question. We start this series of questions with a question that was sent in writing to us. So this is I think Georgi answered the question to a degree, but Georgi, to what To what? I was reading the private chat. I'm sorry. So I will repeat the question of my friend, of our friend Adrian Torres, one of our viewers. What called the director to tell this story? What compelled you, Georgi? And then perhaps Hindo can respond to that too. It will be interesting to hear from Hindo.
Well, Father Georgi, Father George, was living in a very remote and very, how shall I say, very backward village. So almost nobody knew about him. I heard about him first time around the year 2007. And I said, well, maybe he's a very interesting person, but he's so very, very far from here in a very remote area. So I decided to postpone my meeting him. But when we met a friend of ours, she was from Varna, and we told her that we were probably one day going to meet him. She told us, well, don't postpone this, because he kind of prophesied that that will be his last year. So immediately I phoned Hindo and told him, let's go and meet a very interesting personality. Maybe we could record some talks with him. So we met him, and we immediately understood that this was something extraordinary. But because he was in perfect health, despite his 90 years, he was in bright spirits. He was talking all the time, his epic stories, everlasting stories. And we thought that most probably we could go there for years on end, and at the end, gather the material and do something like a film. And even when Hindo asked me, are we making a film or just recording? I told him, well, we're just recording for the time being, and then we see, maybe we can make a film, because we didn't have any budget. Actually, the real budget of this film is something like 10% of what it should be, because everything was done, well, on a voluntary basis. So we were attracted by the extraordinary person of Father George, his character, his presence, his talks, his life story. And when they phoned us in the winter of the year 2014, 2015, and they told us that he was actually dying, we didn't expect that at all. We thought that he would be all right for a couple of years more. But we had no choice but to run to his deathbed and try to catch as much as we can from this really amazing person. So this was the story. It was the character, the person, the extraordinary force of his faith, actually, which was very, very obvious and very charismatic. So this is the personality, the charisma of Father George, which was the main driving force behind the whole project of making this film.
And Hindo, what attracted you? What was the call for you to make this film?
Ами към филма ме привика Георги, моя приятел Георги.
Okay, Georgi invited me, called me to the movie, to the film. My friend Georgi.
За който ще кажа, че не винаги сме на едно мнение, много често, даже като ли по-често сме на различни мнения.
With whom we are rarely on the same, at the same kind of opinion, with the same kind of opinion, rather to the contrary.
Но дори когато не съм съгласен с него, аз съм съгласен с него.
But even when I'm disagreeing with him, I'm agreeing with him.
Нека това не звучи парадоксално. Съгласен съм с него, защото знам, че той не се занимава с глупости.
This is not exactly a paradox, and it is not a paradox simply because I know that he never deals with nonsense. He does not engage himself with nonsense.
И както се казва, винаги хваща бика за рогата.
And he always grabs the bull by the horns.
Тоест винаги се занимава с значими неща. И като ми каза, ай да снимаме от тези Георги, изобщо не съм мислял дали трябва да го снимаме или не. В този смисъл не съм избирал филма, деца вика, както е някак си модерно се казва, филма ме избра мене.
When Georgi called me to the movie, I had no other choice but to hear it and to accept it. And as it is now fashionable to say, I did not find the movie found me.
Верно е, че като отидахме, още като видях човека и питах Георги, ние сега филм ли снимаме или документация?
And indeed, when we arrived on location and I met Father George, my first question was, is this just documenting or are we making documentary?
Георги ми каза, че правим документация. Аз повторих въпроса си, питам та втори път. Филм ли снимаме или документация?
And I had to repeat my question. Are we documenting or are we making a documentary? Go ahead.
Защото това са два различни начина на снимане.
Because this definitely, there is a big difference in whether you're making a documentary or you're documenting determines the manner of filming, the manner of camera work.
Той каза, правим документация. Викам, добре, щом правим документация.
And Georgi said, oh, we're just documenting. And I agreed. I said, okay, if we're making a documentary, if we're documenting, we're documenting.
Това имаш своите минуси и своите плюсове за бъдещия филм, за който ние не знаехме още, че правим филм.
That documenting had its positives and negatives about the the documentary we eventually made, and of course we had no clue that we were making.
Не разсъждавахме за това какъв филм ще излезе от това, което снимаме.
The positive was that we did not think about what movie we were making, what the documentary would be like.
За нас беше важно човека да се изрази напълно пред нас. Всичко, което
for us it was important to
да бъде пълно изявено.
For us it was important to create a situation and allow the object, the protagonist, to fully express himself.
Не снимахме отделни линии, които ще нарека сюжети. И не снимахме документален разказ, снимахме самоизявата на този човек пред нас.
We did not film a documentary with different plot lines, but we just documented the self-expression of this man.
Значи, до тук ще отговоря на въпросите, ще направя едно малко отстъпление и ще спра по-нататък. Проявяват интерес хората, ще добавя какво мисля по въпроса.
I will just say one other brief thing and then a reflection, and then I will maybe respond to other questions further down in this discussion.
Отец Георги още от първия момент ме плени.
Father George completely captivated us from the very first moment we met him.
Аз съм атеист, но обикновено вярващите ми приятели някак си искат да ме вкарат в вярата и мене.
I am an atheist, and however, all my friends of faith are constantly trying to change me.
И общо взето, когато съм с тях, изпитвам някакво напрежение, че трябва непременно, нали, да бъда и аз като тях.
And when I'm around those friends of faith, I constantly feel a sort of pressure that I have to be something else and I have to change, perhaps.
С отец Георги, в момента в който се запознахме, до самата му кончина, никога не съм изпитвал това напрежение, винаги съм изпитвал пълната си вътрешна свобода.
However, in the presence of Father George, I never ever, from the very first moment to his very last breath, I never felt that kind of pressure, but I felt free to be the man I am and to be free to express myself.
И тогава и сега ме е занимавал въпросът как той това нещо го постигаш.
Then and now, I have always been thinking, how did he do that? What in him created that sense for me?
Какви бяха неговите човешки качества, че по този начин той да ме завладее?
What were his human traits that he made me feel that way and captivated me that way?
И две изречения ще добавя, че значи мене ме интересуваше повече човешката страна на отец Георги, отколкото религиозната.
I was more interested in the human side of Father George, not so much the religious side.
В този смисъл, нали, във филма с Георги са автора, детството, ние се допълваме прекрасно.
And in that sense, with the other creator, the other members of the creative team, Georgi Todorov, we complemented each other.
Има го духовника, но го има и бащата на 6 деца. И неговата човешка борба с живота.
In the movie, the theologian, the man of faith, Father Georgi is present, but also is present Georgi, the father of 6 children, and the man, the human Georgi.
Ако само Георги беше правил този филм, или ако само аз го бях правил, без нашето съдружество, филма нямаше да има нищо общо с това, с което сте гледали вие.
If only Georgi Todorov made the movie, or if I only made the movie, the result of our individual efforts would have been very different from the movie you are viewing now.
Въпрос, който мене, как се ражда едно произведение на изкуство, който мене много ме вълнува, но на този етап ще свърша до тук, ако някой го интересува в тази посока, може да се включа пак.
I will end my little expose at this point, but I will join and respond to other questions further down the discussion. Thank you, Hindo. Let's take questions, comments from our guests. Please feel.
Just a second. I think we have a newcomer on our discussion.
Yes,
from New York.
Did.
Yes. Please, Atanas, could you briefly introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Atanas Ilchev. I work here in New York for the City University of New York in IT department, computer systems, virtual reality, this kind of stuff. And I watched the movie twice a year ago, so I don't remember everything like in details, but I still remember many things that impressed me to the point that a person like him is like reading the life of the saints. It's like somebody who lived in 2nd century, in 20th century. So I push something over here. Sorry. And I was really deeply impressed of that man. I know Georgi, and we talk about what's going on here. So I'll be very interested to hear some opinions or some comments about the movie.
All right. Thank you very much, Atanas. And I'm opening this for our guests. Trini, please speak. I hope we can hear you. Trinidad, you're silent again. Aha. All right. Thank you, Trini. Enrique, Drew, Father Ioannis, Krasi, please take the floor. Just raise your hand, like in class. Go ahead, Drew.
So I'm, excuse me, I'm wondering how, when you found out that he was passing, right? Like you guys thought you had years and was kind of just documenting. I'm wondering how that changed, if at all, your guys' process to maybe ask questions that you wanted to but hadn't yet, or like did it change your process in what you were documenting, how you were documenting, when you knew that there was more of a finality than maybe what you initially set out to? And I'm just kind of curious how you, if that was the case, how you guys even responded to that, or how you changed along the way.
Well, actually, it was a roller coaster story, because when we reached the village, they told us, no, he's not receiving anybody else. He's dying, and you have no chance of meeting him. His relatives, his children have stopped anybody from entering his little room, and we're sorry, it's too late. It was February, it was something like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, it was already dark, and we understood that we had lost the last opportunity of filming Father George. Maybe he would die in a couple of hours. So, and on top of that, it was lucky that we were late, because if we had not been late, there was a long queue before us, as they told us on the phone, that there were maybe 100 of his spiritual children that were waiting to say farewell, to kiss him, farewell, and they had only 1 minute each. So if we had arrived on time, we would have had our 1 minute just to kiss his hand, to receive his blessing, and to make room for the next. And probably we would have gone back to Burgas or to Sofia. But as we were late and we had missed the opportunity, we said, okay, we have nothing to lose. Let's stay and sleep here and see what happens next morning. And on the next morning, there was nobody at all. There was no queue. And Father George, who was really, when we entered his room, he couldn't recognize us. He couldn't speak. And little by little, seeing us, recognizing us, he gathered strength, he gathered inspiration. He beamed with joy. He was really happy, joyful, and he wanted to talk. And we almost couldn't stop him from talking, because he started to remember things. And having, as you just asked, that it was the final meeting, obviously, we didn't have time to ask him secondary questions, but we were bound to ask him questions about the main things. And this was lucky, because actually on his deathbed, he said some very important short formulas of his life story, of his opinions, of his testament, I would say. That was his testament to all of us. So it was a coincidence, which I wouldn't even call a coincidence. It was kind of a miracle.
Yes.
That was the right time, and we were the right persons. And we had all the time in the universe to talk to him. And I actually was afraid that he was going to die of this effort, and we will be to blame. So rather than continue with his extraordinary performance, I said, okay, let's stop here. Let's thank God and stop here, because we're going to kill the old man. And everybody will tell us, you made a beautiful film, but you killed him. He died after you. So really, it was, we spoke with him for 2 hours, not for 2 minutes, as expected. So it was absolutely out of the blue that we had the opportunity, with nobody around us, except his relatives, who were preparing lunch or whatever. They were doing their business. So time stopped actually for us. He came out of his coma and delivered his beautiful sermon. And we were really flabbergasted. We couldn't believe our eyes that he was just at the top of his, I would say, mental and moral abilities, and dying at the same time.
Wow. I would say it was not out of the blue, it was out of the skies, Georgi. It feels like that, it seems like that. Trini, I want to check your audio now.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, finally. Hello, Trinidad.
Hello.
I introduced you while we had the first glitch, so you can say a word about yourself, but then go ahead and speak about the film.
Yes, my name is Trinidad Rios. I was born in Mexico, and I came to the United States when I was 16 years old. And my grandma was a very devout Catholic. So while I was watching, I will add my comments right now. So while I was watching the film, it brought me back memories. So when I used to go to church with my grandma, it brought up memories what the priest used to say to us, because we had a very good priest when I was little. And seeing this film, it really brought a lot of things that sometimes you forget, like all of my values and all of the things that I truly keep in my heart are from when I was little with my grandma, when I was going to church. So and also I do want to say something. I would say when Svetlana was translating, something that stood out for me, it says it was I would say that it was a very good choice that you documented instead of saying that you were going to do a documentary, because I would say I was writing this because you were just, and he said it right, and I would just want to say that I do agree that it was like, you let Father George speak from his heart, and then later on, put it into, to his own words. And I would say that would be something, if I had the opportunity to do a film of somebody like my grandma, if she was alive, I would say that it's more important to speak about the person instead of, we're doing a documentary about faith. No, we're doing a documentary about the person who has this faith. Then it's more meaningful. Then you give yourself a step back and say like, wow, this is the man. It's not about the faith. It's about the man who has the faith. And then right there, you stop, you breathe, you breathe. And then when I was watching the documentary, something that stood out for me was that Dr. George says, God chose me. And he says, God chooses the people. So for me, that was because my grandma used to say that to me, wait for it. And you would just wait for it, because she would say espera, va a llegar a ti. Like, wait, it will come for you. Like, it will get to you. So while I was watching the documentary, I think I had to see it again, because I saw it once, and then I had to kind of because I had to read the translation in English, I had to kind of like sometimes stop, and I had to kind of like, you know, take a little moment and then rewind to see if I was reading correctly. So yes, so I think I'm going to watch it again, because it was like it brought me back to my childhood, and it was, I would say, it was very well made to to give people. My husband is atheist, so I have to add that to that one. My husband is atheist, and we have been able to, like, you know, to live in this world of me having faith and him being atheist. But I will say, he has not been seeing the documentary. I watched the documentary for this purpose, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to show him the documentary, and I know that he's going to have some questions later on, Svetlana. We're going to have a discussion later. I know that. And I know he will have this perspective of what all you all said, who doesn't believe in the faith, that it is about the man, and then it's very intriguing. And I also like when you have to say that, you know, it was that you feel safe talking about, you know, the presence of him, he makes you feel safe. And I think people with no judgment, I really like that. Then I was thinking to my head, like, if there is no judgment, then you feel safe. So he makes you feel safe because you felt that he was not judging you, because he had so much soul in him, so much love for life, so much love for the land, so much love that there is no judgment. So if you feel that nobody is judging you, then you feel comfortable. So I think that's when it comes from. This is my belief. This is this is what I believe, that you feel comfortable because he had like all acceptance and love and no judgment. And I think
Thank you, Trini. Thank you, Trini. Father Ioannis, I saw you nod very eagerly
Yes.
as Trini was speaking. Please continue.
Yes. Well, I was really fascinated by watching the film, and I would like to humbly congratulate both my beloved friend and brother in Christ, Georgy Todorov, as well as Mr. Dimitrov.
Did we lose Father's?
In the Orthodox Church, we need we do. I wish we had as many agnostics as him. It'd be a happy church.
I think we're having we have audio issues with Father Ioannis. So I am going to invite another guest to.
You hear?
No, we cannot. It is bad connection.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now this is better. Yes,
so
go ahead,
sorry.
Father.
Okay, fine. So as I said, I really congratulate both Mr. Todorov and Mr. Dimitrov for this excellent production. Well, that has really fascinated me is the life of Father Georgy has let me realize that there is a difference between faith and trust in God. It is one thing to believe in God, but another entirely to trust blindly in Him. While faith is a belief system, while trust is action, and the ministry of Father Georgy is full of action. You see, most of us believe in power of God, thanks to our personal experiences from the liturgical life of the Orthodox Church and through reading the Holy Scriptures. However, putting these beliefs into action can be a true challenge. So placing our trust in God is our choice, and one that we must make wholeheartedly. I really feel grateful because the life of Father Georgi has made me realize that this difference between faith and trust doesn't seem on him.
I'm fascinated. I even typed it in the chat, what you just said, Father Ioannis. This is my biggest takeaway, perhaps, from today's discussion. Your statement that trust is action, and it is the ultimate expression
trust
of
is
faith.
action. And I was really, well, to be honest, I recognized Father Georg, modern Elder Paisios, who was recently canonized by the Orthodox Church.
Yes.
This is an amazing comparison.
Of faith and courage. A man of faith and courage. And action. And you see, faith promotes courage. And that was very obvious in the life of Father Georgi.
I think faith promotes trust and action, as you said yourself. And it is the active form of faith.
Yes.
Trust is the active form of faith. And I'm paraphrasing you. I cannot take credit for what I just said, but I'm just paraphrasing you. And it gives me answers about my own actions from a few years ago, as some of my friends may remember.
Right. And another thing we have to add is that the replies that Father Georgi gives are entirely evangelical on the gospel. That's what I mean. For example, I just recalled Psalm 56. When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you, God, whose word I praise. I shall not be afraid. Flesh do to me. His entire life is based on this quotation from Psalm 56.
I would like to continue this line with a very, very special, I would say, motto or saying by Father George, which is absolutely unique. It is like an extract from the Psalms. It's when he says, "Nego visme."
Yes.
We are his own. These two words summarize everything that we have to say about faith, about Christ, about religion, about orthodoxy, about everything. In 2 words, he managed to put everything together and to use this, as Father Ioannis said, as a guideline for acting and for living. Because whatever happens, he says, well, look, nego visme, we are his own. Why should we worry? Why should we be afraid?
Yes.
Why should we?
Yes.
Well, it is so very logical. If we are his own, then everything else follows. Then we cannot be defeated. Then we have nothing to worry about. Then we cannot be afraid. How can we be afraid if we are his own? So I think that these 2 words are his, how shall I say, his testament to all of us. And they are a practical guideline for life.
Enrique, I read what you placed in the in the chat. Would you like to elaborate a little bit on what you said, especially that fight of an individual against the whole world? Is it a fight? How do you see it? Oh, is it Enrique's turn to have audio problems now?
We don't hear him.
He has something. He seems to know what he's doing.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I thought what I find the most interesting about this fight, and past fight is not the word, but I'm going to use that word for now, of Father Georgie's. It was at that point not just a fight. It was a fight against the entire world, his world, and at some point he is abandoned by everyone, even by his fellow priests, even by his bishops, and the only thing that sustained this fight was his faith, but not a faith of him, but a faith in something more than himself. And this is really interesting because the movie itself has a very literary style of recounting Father Georgie's life, and it brings to mind like the death of Artemio Cruz, La Crónica de una Muerte Anunciada. One was by Carlos Fuentes, and then the other one was by Marquez, and also Borges' ideas of the individual fighting, except that in the case of Borges, the individual fights only for himself. And when the individual fights only for himself, what can often happen is that it devolves into a nihilism, because if the only thing that sustains individuality is yourself, then what comes at the end of the road is destruction. If destruction is the only thing that comes after this life, then there's nothing left. But this was not the case for Father Georgie, and I found that sort of novelistic style of the film really striking, but also the complexity and the richness and the layers and dimensions of this theme fascinating. Yes.
Enrique, you're mentioning especially of my favorite Artemio Cruz by Carlos Fuentes. Put me on a different kind of line of thinking, and Drew is going to join me on this one, thinking of the epic, the classical form of the epic, and as where we speak of the old epic hero like Odysseus and the new epic hero like Aeneas. And the old epic hero, Odysseus, is that individualistic man who is the only survivor after the 10-year journey. He is the only one that washes on the shores of Ithaca. But then Aeneas, the pious man, Pius Aeneas, the pious new epic hero, is the one who leads the completely defeated band of Trojans through more trials and tribulations onto a new land with a whole group of them, and builds the new Rome, the new Troy on the shores of Italy. So speaking of that journey, it is the journey and the determination and the faith in what is above us, and in the faith of connecting. It is a matter of a triangle, connecting the hero with the powers above and his people. So Father George is such an epic hero, if you will, because he is connecting. He becomes the conduit. He becomes the medium between God and the people. And to me, it is a fascinating, right? Thank you, Father Ioannis, for, I'm sure you are, that epic, the epic is in your blood, of course.
He was possessed or transfigured almost.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
and
beautiful.
this is very important, the epic part of the story, because first of all, being in that village and living kind of outside of civilization, he belongs to the tribal or primitive world. And he's also a man of limited education, although very specific education at the seminary, but otherwise he was not well read in the classics, but he lived in this particular epic surroundings historically.
He lived them.
Yes, yes. So we cannot accept him unless we treat him exactly as an epic hero, and extremely strangely enough, uniquely, I would say, he was at the same time his own Homer and his own Achilles.
Absolutely. You're so right.
He's telling the stories and feats of Father George.
Yes, you're so right.
What happened? This was an oral tradition. They were never written. They were transmitted orally. And as the true epics, like the Iliad or any traditional epics, they formed very solid patterns through repetition. And he has been repeating these tales of himself for something like 20 or 30 or more years. So by repetition, they achieved a very classical, crystal clear structure, wording, and he tended to repeat the same wording as Homer repeated the same chants all the time. So it was really, I would say that it was kind of a
living epic.
A living epic.
Right.
It was popular tradition, popular literature, oral, tribal, and on the other hand, he was, of course, in the 20th century and even the 21st century. So this made him a kind of man of, as the saying goes, a man of all seasons. He was classical, pre-literate, oral, and at the same time, of course, our contemporary. So this makes him even more fascinating.
I so agree with you.
Exactly. However, I think it has to be emphasized that because Father Georgi chose this kind of tribal life, as Georgi put it, this helped him to embrace the discipline of simplicity in his ministry. He managed to refocus his heart and mind on Jesus Christ, knowing that he would never fail him. And that's very important. And I don't think he was of limited education, because he was really very, very well read and ready to obey the will of God.
I think
he had an inspiration apparently from the Holy Spirit, and apparently, most probably, this is the reason why this priest is soon going to be canonized by the Orthodox Church. No doubt about it.
Most probably.
When Georgi Todorov, I'm not trying to explain your words, Georgi, but not completely well educated in the traditional, conventional manner of education. That just to clarify, I think that even the structure of the film, in a way, guides us into that thinking about the epic. The 12 cantos are very much in the tradition of epic storytelling, and I just thought that it was the visible epic side, the visible allusion to the epic as structure. Krasi, may I draw you into the discussion too?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Well, me personally, I think this movie makes me think about miracle. And I think every aspect of this project is miraculous. So,
Correct.
Creating art as miracle.
Yes.
Faith is a miracle. Holy man is a miracle. And death is a miracle. So I think this is a masterpiece, a real masterpiece in the miracle disguised under a documentation project. I'd like to thank the authors about this movie. I keep it on my laptop every time I have bad mood, low spirit. As I see just the title, makes me get alive. Really. Thanks.
Jolted. Thank you, Krasi. I am I am going to read to you just one more passage from Adrian's response. The life of Father George has parallels to the life of Ignatius of Loyola and to the life of Jesus. In Canto 2, minute 1337 to 1356, we see Father George telling how the priests cast off their cassocks and how they had given up their duty, that they had given in to Satan. This scene moves from black and white to color, from black and white to color. What is the purpose behind that? And I believe my question goes to Hindo most probably.
Да. Не съм сигурен, че ще мога да отговоря. Даже в момента мисълта ми беше отхвъркнала в друга посока, асоциациите ми. И чак конкретно за стила на филма, за преминаване от черно-бяло към цветно, към черно-бяло, много ще стесним като че ли. Аз съм това да се тълкува от изразните средства какво. Самия аз не знам обикновено защо го правя. Или ако имам обяснение, това не значи, че други хора не могат да имат друго обяснение, което също да е вярно.
I'm going to summarize what Hindo said. My thoughts were, at this particular point, my thoughts were in a completely different, going in a completely different direction, provoked by the discussion previous to this. And I believe that discussing specific stylistic devices and choices is going to narrow the discussion into very technical points. Also, my explanation or my response to why from black and white, why a specific technical choice is going to be very different from anybody else's answer. And the important thing is how the particular technical choice is influencing, affecting the audience, and not what I exactly wanted to say. It is important what my choice is saying to the audience rather than what I wanted to say, or if I even remember what I wanted to say. through it.
Искам да кажа друго, обаче, поне преди малко стана дума за структурата и вече бях споменал, че ние не снимахме филма, документирахме човека. В момента, в който решихме да правим филм, човека вече го нямаше. И всъщност това, което сме документирали, това трябваше да видим реално какво ние сме документирали. И трябваше да се подчиним на това, което сме документирали, и от тук насетне материала почна да ни води нас. Ние не можехме да упражняваме някакви своеволия над материала и да го нагласяме спрямо свои някакви предварителни представи.
Okay, stop. I will not summarize. I kind of remembered what he said. And I remember it because this is not the first time Hindo and I have been talking about this film. I'm just revealing a secret, which is not a secret. These are the words of Hindo. I would rather address the question and the topic of the film's structure, the 12 cantos. When we were filming, we didn't know at that time that we were shooting a movie. We were just documenting as previously discussed. And so when we finally realized that we wanted to make a film, we had no choice but to use only what we had because the person was no longer among us. And so it was not we who controlled the footage, but the footage informed and controlled us, dictated to us what to show and how to show it and how to construct it. Продължи Хиндо.
Значи, приятно изненадани бяхме, че всъщност материала предложи тая класическа структура. Тя се е съдържала вътре в него, в тези песни. Първоначално ние ги наричахме глави, но някак си материала изхвърли и това да ги наричаме глави. Той наложи това да бъдат песни. И то се съдържаше вътре в него. Нали, ние не сме го измислили.
We did not invent the canto structure. As we watched the long hours of our footage, we realized that we did have 12 chapters, as we called them in the beginning, and for a while we kept calling them chapters until we actually realized these were no chapters, these were songs, these were cantos, just like the parts of an epic.
Просто сме имали смирението да му се подчиним.
We had the humility to obey the structure and the content that we had filmed.
Here, I would like to add something connected with what Krasimir said about the miracles. Because in the footage, which we had shot as documenting Father George, there was a lot of material which was of poor quality and didn't meet the necessary standards for television or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it had to be just cut. But in that footage, there were remarkable things said by Father George. So we didn't know what to do. And the solution was to switch to black and white, to do something very strange with these parts of the film, especially the 2 or 3 minutes at the very beginning. You see Father George in black and white, but this is very poor quality material. He says something really biblical, starting with, I am nothing.
Yes.
And the culmination is sublime when he said, God was making fun of them, using me, for me, as the victor. So this cannot be thrown. regardless of the quality of the material. So we were forced to do it in black and white and to use some filters. And when I watch the film now, I see that this particular footage must be in that black and white, almost eerie
Agreed.
quality. Because
it is brilliant.
Yes, because you don't see the details of the person. It's like a prophet talking.
Yes. Yes.
It's like a archaeological discovery, which is broken, but it's the real thing. You see that this is the real work of a Greek or Egyptian or whatever master from 2,000 years ago. So I think that this is almost a miracle. Because if this footage was of standard quality, we wouldn't have interfered with it. We would have used it maybe in color, and it would have lost its universal, I would say, metaphysical appeal.
Very.
Actually,
very
the worst material proved to be the best. In reality, yes.
Another paradox, Georgi, another paradox, it seems like. I am inviting all our guests, Trini, Enrique, Drew, Krasi, to express and consider a show, expressing some final thoughts and feelings about the film.
Last thoughts, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you first.
Well, not necessarily. Anything else, Drew? Go ahead.
I don't want to interrupt. I just had I had this moment as hearing everything. It made me think back actually to a moment. I guess I was in high school, but I remember being in temple for our high holidays, the New Year, and bringing these things in. And I remember the rabbi mentioning that there's an influx of people, and it's not the same crowd as Friday night, Saturday night, whatever. And where I thought he was going to go was like, where have you been, right? Where have you been all year? And his response was, I'm glad. It's wonderful that you feel you only need to reconnect with God once a year. I, as a rabbi, need to do it. I made it a job to talk to God on a regular basis. And this conversation really, it reminded me of that, in that it's actually not about like, do you show up a weekly? Do you show up daily? Is it yearly? Like some people, the conversation of trust really spoke to me and reminded me of that moment where, it's how you show up, how you need religion or faith, or how it works for you. But I even want to say, I think that faith too within the filmmaking process, right? And even taking, Georgie, you talking about like, if you're on the atheist, or no, sorry, it's Hindo who's mentioning earlier that your atheist side of things, but there's still this faith within the process of creating, right? And letting the footage speak. It's not about color or not, or what you're trying to say. All of this is really coming together for me in this really, like, faith looks different for Hindo and Georgie, like you both creating this work really was, it's just so beautiful, I think, in the duality. Anyway, I just wanted to share with that. Thank you both. Yeah.
Thank you, Drew. That is beautiful. Thank you. Trini? No? Okay.
No.
That is
I know.
no sound.
There you go.
Okay.
I was can you hear me now?
Go ahead, Trini.
Okay, for my final thoughts, I would say that I was in and out, but the last thing that I heard was like, the first part being black and white. I would say it was brilliant, because it brought me back to a place when he was the words that he said, it was like, oh, okay, I'm ready to listen. Like, I am ready to listen. Because if I that was my first impression when I was like, okay, I am ready to listen, because this is not something like from now, like I am ready to listen. So I will say that when the people are watching the film and they see the little part, and I said like, oh, okay, I am ready to listen. I really like that. But for my final thoughts, me, live in Mexico a long time ago. My grandma passed away, so it was, for me, it was a reminder. The film remind me of my roots. The film remind me of all the things that
Yes.
used to do with my grandma. It was just very fulfilling, very warm to my heart, and just to continue believing like what I am,
Yes.
like on my own beliefs. For me, it was like I remember Father George said exactly like, it's that stood for me, like, God chose him. And I was thinking, okay, this film, I was able to, through Svetlana, I was able to like to this film show me again my my grandma's beliefs and my own beliefs. And I would say it was just um um it was just, I needed it. So sometimes things come when you need it, when you need a little more faith, when you need a little more things. I think this film is just, it was perfect. A few of my I had a couple of my cousins passed away, um, because of the pandemic, and a few other things, like my special cousins. And I was like, and I just went to a funeral last Wednesday for one of my cousins. And then I was just, when all these things happening to you, and like you are, you just need a little time to think. And this film is kind of like brought me back to what is, like, what is the essence of life. We're here, live the best you can. And then what Hindu said when he was with Father George, he just felt not judgmental. And I would say, like, it brought me back to saying, we're here, we should not be judgmental of anybody. We're just here and just show love and be love. And that will be it. So thank you, Svetlana, for inviting me to see the film, because it was just perfect. I needed it. It was just perfect.
It's a
for me.
miracle.
So I will
This
watch
film
it.
is a miracle, and its miracles continue, it seems like.
Yes, it
Thank you,
was. I
Trinidad.
needed it. Like, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
well
you.
made. Very well made.
Thank you.
Mhm. Oh, I will add something. Maybe they should add the maybe later on. I know maybe not the whole voice, not Father George, don't take his voice, but maybe who is when maybe do it in English that way, because like listening in Bulgarian and then reading the translation, I wish I could just learn like Bulgarian and being able to.
Okay, that's another project. We can do a voiceover. I'm in. Georgi, Hindo, I'm in.
I'm in.
Great. Go ahead. Please don't wait for me to invite you again. Just take your turns.
Well, as a conclusion, I think we have to say that every age has its own characteristics. Well, right now we are in an age of religious complexity. Well, we have programs, methods, organizations, and a world of nervous activities which occupy time and attention. What is missing is the simplicity which is in Christ. And this simplicity can be found in the life of Saint Georgi. Personally, I feel highly benefited by watching this film. The present world that we live doesn't satisfy the longing of heart for peace. And the life of Father Georgi gives peace. And this peace is necessary. So thank you very much, Mr. Todorov and Mr. Dimitrov, for this excellent production. And be assured that it has helped all of us who have watched.
Ευχαριστώ πάρα.
Ευχαριστώ, Father Ioannis. Krasi, Enrique.
Well, I just wanted to say this is a very nice, beautiful discussion. Definitely, very timely. And as a conclusion, my lasting question is: people like Father Georgi are exceptional. They're mystical. They're mystics, and a mystic always, in a way, lives out of the system. But for the rest of us, what happens when the rebels take over the system, and then they become the system? And when they become the system, they become that which they were accusing. What happens then? What do we do? And I think that was the last question and preoccupation that I had as a result of watching this film.
Wow. That brings another discussion and a whole new event and a whole new film, I'm afraid.
Well, let me give a short answer. The important thing about Father George is that he was in the classical Christian tradition, the original Christian tradition. He was not a politician. He was not revolutionary, as Christ was not a revolutionary. He followed the law, as Christ followed the law. And he overcame the system not by fighting it, but by being himself, by loving his neighbors, by loving his enemies. That's how he triumphed. This is the absolutely classical Christian way. He didn't fight with a gun or with the illegal underground literature.
Interrupting, not only Christian, but especially Orthodox.
Yes, yes, yes.
Has experience of persecution.
Yes, yes. So this is a great lesson to us, a great lesson, because we always think that we achieve things by counteracting. He did not counteract. He went his own way.
He just acted.
And everything else collapsed because it was not the real thing. He was the real thing, and that's why he survived. That's why he won. And everything else, the communist ideology was very strong. It was 1,000,000 times stronger than him, but it collapsed because it was not based on reality. It was based on some fiction, on some illusions, some utopias, and he was with the ultimate reality. And this reality triumphed through, I would say, through being, not even through doing, through being. He was.
I think this brings us back to Father Ioannis's statement about trust being action, not reaction, not fight, not counteraction, but action. Action by what is right. As I often say to my students, there is a little voice in the back of your head that tells you you're doing rightly or you're doing wrongly. And just doing what you know deep inside of you that is right, I think being and acting It was the power and the miracle, the example of miracle that Father George is giving us. Final, Krasi?
I would like to reiterate what Father Ioannis just said about simplicity. I think what we badly need today is simplicity and modesty. The simplicity of the movie and the simplicity of Father George himself, this is what we lack badly today. And that's why we better watch this film and think about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Krasi. Georgi and Hindo, final thoughts coming from you.
Let's have director.
Okay, Mr. Director.
Ами най-голямото чудо, което според мен е тук, че много е просто човек да живее свято, като виждаме примера на отец Георги. И най-голямото чудо е, че много малко хора успяват да го направят.
The simplest thing in life, the biggest miracle is the realization that the simplest way to live is the saintly way to live, like Father Georgi. And the shocking thing is that so few are doing it.
Exactly.
Thank you, Hindo. Благодаря. And producer, screenwriter?
Well, first I would like to make some technical remarks. Now, first of all, this conversation will be accessible on Facebook after we finish. So anybody who knows somebody who would be interested could tell them. A second information is that the film, although it was, of course, low budget, and I would even say no budget,
no budget
production, it won 5 awards in international film festivals. The most important of them was the Golden Knight Prize, the Golden Knight Award, and for us, knowing how we did this film, it was really kind of unexpected award, because actually the award for best documentary film was split between our film and a documentary by Emir Kusturica. So we were flattered to be on the same par with the world famous director. So the third maybe interesting information is that we are planning, we don't know when and how, to make a sequel of this film, hopefully, because we would like to show the figure of Father Georgi through the eyes of his spiritual children, of people who knew him, of the places where he was, for example, the seminary and other places. So the first film was about Father Georgi himself. The second would be others about Father George. So we would hopefully have time and effort and money and all the necessary things to make a sequel, because there are many more things to be said about Father George. This is not enough. There's more to say about him. And finally, to summarize my own experience with this movie, first I would say that this is a film which changes your life, which gives you a standard. I think that Father Georgi is a kind of a yardstick, and we have to measure our achievement with his, because this is very important when we consider what we're doing, how we are living, we tend to excuse ourselves, saying, look, the circumstances are against us. The world is going in a bad direction. Society is whatever, and this and that. And always we're trying to excuse ourselves through outside intervention, problems, whatever. But if we consider the circumstances around Father Georgi, we see that everything was against him. The spirit of the time, the spirit of the place, the village. He was in a Turkish village, actually. He was a refugee. He didn't have a church in that village. He didn't have the necessary education to go to seminary. So everything was against him. Everything. Communism was at its strongest, at the peak of its power. I remember as a kid, the atmosphere in Bulgaria was euphoric about the cosmos, about the conquer of space. Tomorrow we're going to be to the stars, we're going to fly to the other universes. And religion was obviously obsolete. And it was at that time that he said no. He said no to the world. He said no to the system. He said no to the spirit of the time. Everything was against him. So this means that we have no excuses.
Yes.
We should not excuse ourselves. We must be what God wants us to be. No excuse. No excuse. So Father George is a practical manual of life. This is how you should live.
Thank you, Georgi. I want to translate for our non-Bulgarian speaking guests what the public chat says. Mr. Atanas Tsvyatkov said that the life and deeds of Father Georgi and the film about him inspired him to carve an iconostasis. This is by the altar of a church, the way we have things. And I think in Catholic Church the same way. The iconostasis, and when he is honoring Father Georgi, and when the iconostasis will be completed, will be finished, he will donate it, he will gift it to the church in the village of Zheglarti, where Father Georgi served in the church. So just to clarify it, because it's in Bulgarian, naturally, it's in the public chat to your right. And I would like to thank all our participants. Georgi and Hindo, thank you for creating, thank you for meeting and paying attention to the call of the universe to visit, meet, and document for eternity, for posterity, the words and wisdom and the faith of this wonderful man.
Indeed.
And man of faith. I want to thank my friends Trini and Enrique and Drew for being here. Father Ioannis, it's been an honor to work with you and to listen to your wisdom.
The honor is all mine.
You have no idea how true your words about trust being action ring with me. I think it would that would have hold on my thoughts for a long, long time. And Krasi, it was great seeing you after so many years. Great high school we come from. And thank you, Trini, Hindo, and Georgi once again. Galia behind the scenes, Georgi's wife and co-producer. And Zvezdumir, our tech guy, whose help was and whose knowledge and ability to set us technically are priceless. Thank you all.
A final request, please.
Of course.
It would be of great help if we could.
And we lost Father Ioannis' voice again.
Hear me right now?
Yes.
You have to repeat.
It would be of great help if we could have the film in Greek subtitles in the near future.
It is, I think it is ready, right, Georgi?
It is practically ready.
Great.
But we need some more time, maybe 2 or 3 weeks maximum, because before we make the Greek premiere of this film.
Excellent.
Please invite us. I don't know Greek, but I would love to just take in the atmosphere and the spirit of the people who will be there.
Right.
All right. Thank you, everyone. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure.
Us. Thank you.
Thank you, Katerina. You were great. Let me add that actually the film is being translated into French, German, Greek, Russian,
Spanish,
Romanian, and did I say German?
Yes,
and German. So
no Spanish?
No, not yet. Not yet.
We request Spanish now.
You will help us with Spanish.
Yes, and Italian.
And Italian.
And maybe
in due course. Yes, but really, the English, French, German, Russian cover most of Europe. Because actually, they speak English more.
Yes.
Most of them. But we needed also Greek as an Orthodox country, Romania as Orthodox, as a special, how shall I say, a special honor to share this personality with our brothers.
Yes. Thank you very much, Georgi, Hindo, and everybody here. So long.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good night from Athens.
Trust is action. Trust is action. Goodbye.
Good night from Athens.
Good night. Good night, everybody. Thank you.